Have you ever stood in a room full of family and felt completely invisible? My name is Elyra, I'm 32, and what happened at my brother's gala still plays on a loop in my head. My sister, perfect, polished Selene, humiliated me in front of everyone, and they all laughed, toasted, like it was a joke. But what no one knew was that I had a secret of my own. You see, that night wasn't just about Tavian's promotion. It was the beginning of something none of them saw coming. The real story, the one they tried to keep buried, is what happened next. Before I tell you what made my grandmother stand up and silence the entire ballroom, hit that like button if you've ever had to swallow your pride just to keep peace. And subscribe. It may seem small, but it keeps stories like mine alive. You won't want to miss this. They say memory softens with time, but that night has never dulled, not even a little. The Grand Meridian Hotel sparkled like something out of a dream, all marble floors and towering crystal chandeliers. Beneath its golden light, the gala was already in full bloom, laughter rising like champagne bubbles, tuxedos shifting past sequin gowns, and the orchestra fluttering through a cheerful Strauss waltz. I stood just off-center, the hem of my emerald dress brushing against my ankles, feeling like a child playing dress-up. Everyone was there to celebrate Tavian's big promotion at his law firm, our golden boy, the pride of the Voss family. The toasts had already started. I hadn't even made it to the bar yet, and I already wanted to disappear. I tucked myself behind one of the tall flower arrangements, fingers grazing the chilled stem of my untouched glass. The scent of white lilies mixed with perfume and overcooked appetizers. Across the ballroom, my sister Selene shimmered, sleek black suit, flawless blowout, surrounded by a constellation of admirers. She turned slowly, eyes scanning the crowd like she was hunting something. No, someone, me. My stomach twisted. She always found a way to turn the spotlight into a weapon, and tonight I could feel the target burning between my shoulder blades. I tried to keep my posture tall, tried to smile, to blend in. But I knew Selene. She didn't throw tantrums. She curated chaos. And Tavian's big night? That was just her stage. My grip tightened around the champagne flute. The cold bit into my skin, grounding me for half a second, just long enough to catch a sliver of motion from the far end of the room. Grandma Elyra. She sat alone near the corner exit, her dress modest, her silver hair twisted into a loose chignon, but it was her eyes, sharp, unwavering, that caught me off guard. She wasn't looking at Tavian, or the stage. She was staring straight at me. She didn't smile, didn't blink, just watched. As if she knew something I didn't. As if she was waiting. The swell of the music grew louder, bright and festive. Tavian's laugh echoed from the center of a crowd. Everyone leaned in toward him like flowers chasing the sun. The warmth in the room was stifling, but a chill crawled down my spine. Something felt off. It wasn't just nerves or Selene's usual theatrics. No, tonight was different. Heavier. I stepped back and nearly collided with a waiter. He muttered an apology, and I nodded stiffly, my focus still anchored to Grandma Elyra's gaze, still watching, still silent. My inner voice whispered what I didn't want to hear. You don't belong here. I glanced down at the neckline of my dress. Too low. The color? Too bold. The smile I'd practiced in the mirror? Already slipping. A burst of laughter exploded from the table beside me, Selene's voice cutting through the noise. She'd found her audience, and I knew without a doubt that her next performance was about to begin. I pressed my palm flat against the velvet-draped table, willing my pulse to slow. My reflection shimmered faintly in the silverware. I looked fine, normal, presentable, but I didn't feel real, not here. A passing couple smiled politely. I smiled back, or tried to. The muscles didn't quite obey. Why did I come? Because Tavian asked. Because Grandma had called me just once last week and said gently, it would mean something if you showed up. Because a part of me still hoped this family could see me, just once. Selene's voice rang out again, louder this time. Something about sacrifices and hard work. The crowd laughed and clinked glasses. My throat tightened. I took a step toward the exit, then stopped. Because at that exact moment, the orchestra hit a dramatic swell, and I saw Selene lift her flute of champagne toward Tavian. But her eyes, her sharp, triumphant eyes, landed on me. She knew I wasn't gone yet. She was waiting too. The night was just beginning, and I already felt like I was bracing for impact. My fingers drifted toward the small purse at my side, inside sketches no one knew about, a folded letter I hadn't dared open in years. I didn't know why I'd brought them tonight. Maybe I thought I'd need a reminder of who I really was or who I used to be before the world told me I wasn't enough. And in that moment, right there, beneath the golden lights and paper-thin smiles, I felt something shift, like a wind picking up before a storm, a shadow crossing a face mid-laugh, a truth stirring in the dark. I didn't know what Selene had planned, but I could feel it looming, like a curtain about to be pulled back. I forced myself to smile the way I'd practiced, but inside, I was already holding my breath. Her voice cut through the music like a shard of glass. "Elyra," she said, drawing out my name with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Still sketching in that little apartment of yours?" I froze. I hadn't seen her approach. One second, I was sipping watered-down champagne in the shadows. The next, Selene stood in front of me like she owned the entire ballroom. And maybe she did. At least, she acted like it. The room didn't hush, not yet. Conversations continued around us, but I felt the heat of a dozen glances shifting our way. Selene had always known how to find the perfect moment, how to plant the seed, let it grow, and then strike when no one could look away. Her heels clicked as she stepped closer, the slit in her suit jacket slicing sharp against her hip. "Still dreaming of making it big?" she asked, voice honeyed with venom. "I guess someone has to stay grounded while Tavian flies." I blinked at her, lips parting to respond, but nothing came out. My fingers curled around my glass. The chill didn't help this time. I wasn't grounded. I was sinking. Selene raised her arm like she was toasting a bride. "Ladies and gentlemen," she called out, loud enough to silence even the orchestra. Oh God. My heart kicked against my ribs. "She's here, our very own Elyra Voss." Her smile sharpened. "Still chasing her little drawings in that tiny one-bedroom? Remember that old dream she had?" Chuckles rippled through the crowd. A few relatives turned toward us, faces stretched in polite confusion, unsure if this was a joke or a toast. Selene didn't give them time to wonder. "You've no achievements," she shouted, her voice ringing like a bell over crystal and chatter. "You'll never succeed!" The laughter stopped. Then, worse, Tavian's booming laugh broke through like a judge's gavel. "Selene," he chuckled, "you're terrible." But he raised his glass anyway. Others followed. Aunt Maris, Uncle Dion, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them lifted their glasses and toasted my brother, Tavian, the golden child. Not me. Never me. I stood there, hollowed out, my cheeks burned, my throat ached with swallowed words. And Selene? She looked radiant. "I mean," she said, pretending to lower her voice, "we can't all be brilliant lawyers or business moguls. Some of us have to scribble, right?" My pulse roared in my ears. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, their faces blurred in the light. I felt small again, like the kid at the science fair whose project got stepped on and then laughed at. That memory, Selene dropping my display and pretending it was an accident, flashed behind my eyes like lightning. The crowd shifted, attention already drifting. Selene had done what she came to do, puncture me cleanly, then vanish before the blood hit the floor. I turned toward the bar, desperate for distance, but she followed. "You know," she said, softer now, just for me, "you should really stop showing up. It's embarrassing. For you. And honestly, for us." I stared straight ahead. My reflection in the mirrored shelves behind the liquor bottles looked like someone else, someone drained, disconnected. She leaned in. Her perfume was sharp and cold. "You'll never measure up," she whispered. A beat. Then she was gone. Just like that. I didn't watch her walk away. I just stood there, fingers trembling around the stem of my glass. The condensation had pooled in my palm, unnoticed. My nails dug into my skin. They had all clapped, cheered, laughed. For Tavian. For Selene. Never for me. And I hated how part of me wasn't even surprised. Behind me, someone made a joke. Another round of laughter erupted. I couldn't tell if it was about me or not. It didn't matter. It felt the same. I moved through the ballroom like a ghost, brushing past clusters of guests, their sequins flashing like tiny knives. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every word hung too long in the air. I ducked behind a curtain near the far end of the ballroom, a service alcove, half lit, forgotten. I pressed my back to the wall, finally breathing. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wiped them on my dress. A clink of glasses rang from the stage. Tavian was giving a speech now. "Couldn't have done it without the strength of our family," he said, voice warm and polished, "especially my sisters, Selene, who keeps me in check, and Elyra, who— well, you know Elyra." Laughter again. I slid down the wall until I was sitting, knees drawn up, the world muffled behind velvet and drywall. My head dropped forward, forehead resting against my arms. Why did I come? I thought of the letter again, the one I'd tucked inside my purse, the one I still hadn't read. I thought of Grandma Leora watching me from across the ballroom. Her gaze hadn't flinched once. A strange heat bloomed behind my eyes. She knew. Somehow, she knew what this night would be. And she still asked me to show up. My chest tightened. "What are you trying to tell me, Grandma? Why now?" Footsteps passed by the curtain. Someone paused. I held my breath. Then they moved on. I looked up. The curtain shifted. A sliver of ballroom light spilling into the alcove like moonlight through storm clouds. I caught a glimpse of Selene on the stage now, standing beside Tavian, both of them glowing with applause. And for one awful second I believed her, that I really was nothing, that maybe, just maybe, I had wasted my life. I blinked hard, and then a shadow fell across the curtain. A hand, gently, firmly, touched my shoulder. I turned, startled. It was Grandma. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her touch alone made the noise fade. I stared at her. She looked fierce, not angry, not soft, but solid, like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. Her eyes didn't ask if I was okay. They told me I wasn't, and that she had something to say. The warmth of Grandma's hand lingered on my shoulder even after she walked away. She didn't speak, not then. She didn't need to. Just that one gesture, quiet and steady, had anchored me in place, long enough to stop me from drowning in Selene's words. But as I stood alone in the corner of the ballroom, I felt something else rising through the cracks. Not just humiliation, but something deeper, older, a wound I thought I'd buried years ago. The orchestra shifted into a slow melody. Couples glided across the floor in practiced elegance while I drifted further inward, pulled not by the music, but by memory. I was 12 again, back in our backyard on the south side of Chicago. The grass had been patchy that summer, and the heat so thick it turned the air into syrup. I remember sitting cross-legged on the faded blue picnic blanket, sketchbook propped on my knees. I'd been drawing quietly for nearly an hour, lost in the shading of a bird's wings, when the shadow fell over me. "You're still doing that?" Selene's voice, even back then, had that bite, that crisp condescension disguised as amusement. I looked up. She stood tall in her tennis skirt, her arms folded, her ponytail bounced like it was trained to stay smug. "I'm practicing," I said, too soft. She plucked the sketchbook from my lap before I could react. "Practicing what? Doodles?" Her laugh rang out across the yard. "Art's for losers, Elyra. Try doing something real." I stood up fast, reaching for the book, but she yanked it back and tore a page straight down the middle. "Stop it!" She blinked, surprised I'd raised my voice. But then, delighted, she ripped another page, and another, until my sketches floated like broken feathers across the grass. That was the day I stopped drawing in front of anyone. I came back to the present with a jolt. The champagne flute in my hand trembled slightly. I set it down on a passing tray, not trusting my grip. The ballroom suddenly felt too bright, too loud. Every polished surface reflected someone else's smile, someone else's victory. I needed air. I slipped out through the side hallway and found a smaller corridor lined with portraits of past donors. The lighting was low and golden, quieter. I leaned against the cool marble wall and let my head fall back, eyes closed. What am I still doing here? Tavian's voice echoed faintly from the ballroom, some joke about rising through the ranks. The crowd erupted in applause. I pulled my phone from my clutch and checked the time. Almost 9. I should have left an hour ago. But something Grandma said last week stopped me. "Show up, Elyra. You'll understand why when the time comes." Understand what? I reached into my purse, fingers brushing against that old envelope I hadn't opened in years. It had no return address, no name, Just my name in careful cursive, and the faint scent of lavender clinging to the paper like a ghost. I almost opened it then. Almost. But footsteps echoed down the hallway. I turned just as Selene appeared, alone this time, her expression unreadable. "Found you," she said, like this was some game she was winning. I straightened. "Wasn't hiding." She tilted her head, the corner of her mouth twitching. "You always think people are out to get you." "Only when they humiliate me in front of 200 people." She rolled her eyes, stepping closer. "Oh, come on. That was lighthearted. You're too sensitive." I bit the inside of my cheek. "Don't cry. Don't give her the satisfaction." "I get it," she added, her tone softening slightly. "You're artistic. That's fine. But maybe stop acting like the world owes you something just because you didn't take the practical route." "I never asked the world for anything," I said. My voice came out low even. She laughed lightly. "Except a pity party." Her words didn't land the way they used to. Something inside me had shifted. "Are you done?" I asked. That surprised her. For a second her face froze. Then she shrugged and walked past me toward the ballroom, but not before muttering, "Still never learned to fight back." I watched her disappear through the door, and for the first time I didn't feel smaller. I felt sharper, like something in me had stopped bending. My fingers drifted again to the envelope. That night in my room, years ago, when I first found it, I'd just come home from school, crying because Selene had embarrassed me in front of my entire class. I'd opened my drawer to grab a fresh sketch pad and instead found the envelope. Inside had been a folded note, no name, just, "You see what others don't. Keep creating, keep dreaming. You're not alone." I'd read it 10 times, 20, and I'd hidden it, as if even hope needed protection in our house. I reached for it again in the purse, then stopped. No, not here, not yet. Let them think I'm invisible tonight. Let them toast Tavian and praise Selene, because there were still things they didn't know, that I hadn't told. Things even I hadn't understood fully. Yet. A soft voice pulled me back. "Ellie?" I turned. It was Jorvik, my cousin. Messy curls, guitar pick on a chain around his neck, and eyes that always looked like they saw just a little too much. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, then shook my head. "I don't know." He stepped closer, holding up a glass of soda. "Non-alcoholic toast?" I took it with a small smile. He leaned against the wall beside me. "You shouldn't let her get to you. She's sharp, but not deep." I raised an eyebrow. "That's supposed to help?" He chuckled. "No, just true." A pause settled between us. Then he said softer, "You used to draw in the treehouse, remember?" I did, but I hadn't thought about that in years. "I saw your sketchbook once," he added. "Didn't tell anyone. It was good, really good." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thanks." "Still drawing?" I hesitated. "Yeah, just not for them." He looked at me carefully. Maybe it's time they knew. Something flickered in his eyes. Encouragement, maybe, or warning. Before I could ask, applause exploded again from the ballroom. Jorvik nodded toward the noise. "Time to go back?" I stared at the closed double doors, and for a split second I felt like a child again, small, dismissed, afraid. But only for a second. I turned toward the ballroom with a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, because something inside me whispered, "They don't know everything, but soon they will." The ballroom lights dimmed to a soft amber as the spotlight shifted toward the stage. Tavian stood under its glow, adjusting his cufflinks like he'd rehearsed it. His tailored navy suit caught the light just right, polished, practiced, perfect. Behind him, a massive digital screen displayed his name in gold serif, Tavian Reed, partner at Ashwood and Vale. Applause thundered through the room, thick and eager. I stayed near the edge, wedged between a marble pillar and a table overflowing with half-empty flutes and wilting roses. My palms rested on the linen-covered surface, knuckles pale from the pressure. Tavian held up a hand, modest, charming, always the golden boy. "Wow," he said with a sheepish grin. "That's a lot." The crowd laughed. The walls seemed to lean in around me. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen so many people so united in admiration for one person. "I wouldn't be here without the legacy of my family," Tavian continued, voice rich and full of pride. Our parents taught us discipline. Selene showed me what real ambition looks like. And Elyra... My stomach clenched. He paused, scanning the room. I could feel the crowd pivot, waiting for the punchline. Elyra reminds me to stay creative, he finished quickly, to not forget where we came from. Another round of polite applause. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. More like a nod toward the family eccentric, the background character. Aunt Maris reached Tavian first, arms thrown around him, cheeks glowing with pride. She whispered something I couldn't hear, but Selene, standing right beside them, laughed, her gaze flicking across the room. It landed on me. She didn't say anything, but her expression was unmistakable. You don't belong here. I couldn't move. The room buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but everything sounded underwater. I tried to swallow, but my throat had gone dry. My hands trembled under the tablecloth, fingertips brushing the heavy seams like I needed something to anchor me to the floor. Selene's words from earlier looped in my mind like a cruel nursery rhyme. You'll never measure up. Embarrassing for you. Still sketching? Had I really wasted my life? I'd spent years trying to keep my world quiet, safe, sketching behind locked doors, working jobs that paid just enough, saying no to things that might lead to exposure, or worse, judgment. But now, standing in the corner of this ballroom, drowning in sequins and applause, it felt like I'd traded years of silence for nothing. The orchestra picked up again, light and celebratory, but the notes curled inside my ears like static. Someone bumped into me, a cousin maybe, and muttered a quick sorry before walking on. I stood frozen, breathing too shallow, staring at the glass centerpiece in front of me. It held floating candles and rose petals, delicate and untouchable. I wasn't delicate. I wasn't even there, at least not to them. My shoulders hunched slightly. I wanted to disappear. But just as I was about to step back, to slip away again unnoticed, I felt it. A presence behind me. A hand, gentle and firm, settled on my shoulder. The room didn't change. The music didn't falter, but my heart paused mid-beat. I turned. Grandma Elyra stood there. She didn't speak. Her hand remained where it was, grounding me. Her other clutched a small leather-bound clutch, the edges worn, the clasp tarnished. Her eyes searched mine, deep, clear, unblinking. I tried to smile, but my lips barely moved. She nodded once, slow, deliberate. Then, in the span of a breath, her gaze flicked toward the stage where Selene and Tavian basked in the glow of their shared spotlight, back to me. And something passed between us, a current, a quiet agreement. She knew what I felt, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't think I was wrong for feeling it. She didn't try to console me, didn't spout any hollow wisdom. Instead, she squeezed my shoulder once and then let go. She stepped past me, slowly, deliberately making her way toward the front. I watched her go, suddenly breathless. The crowd parted instinctively for her. Elyra Voss wasn't loud, but she carried weight. Not just as the matriarch, but as someone who saw everything and said nothing, until it mattered. I wanted to follow her. But my feet stayed planted, as if some invisible tether held me to the spot. From the stage, Tavian was making another joke, something about early mornings and late briefs. The laughter that followed didn't touch me. I glanced down at my hands, still trembling beneath the tablecloth. My nails had dug crescent moons into my palms. My heartbeat stuttered when I looked back up, because Grandma had stopped. She wasn't mingling. She wasn't joining the applause. She was standing still, just in front of the first row, facing the stage, facing them, facing all of them. She held the clutch tightly now, her knuckles white against the leather. Selene noticed first. Her smile wavered for half a beat. Then Tavian turned, brows drawing together slightly. The orchestra quieted. Conversations slowed. The room began to tilt toward silence. I stepped forward, barely realizing it, because something was about to happen. Something no one expected. And I wasn't frozen anymore. I was watching, waiting, bracing. The room held its breath. Grandma Elyra stood still at the base of the stage, no microphone, no spotlight, just her, framed by silence and expectation. Her silver hair, loosely pinned, shimmered faintly under the amber lighting. She clutched her worn clutch like it carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid things. Tavian blinked at her, confused. Selene's lips twitched like she was deciding whether to smile or bristle. And me? I couldn't move. Every muscle in my body went still, frozen in the space between dread and hope. "Mom?" Tavian asked, unsure. "Did you want to say something?" Elyra nodded once, slowly, and stepped up. Someone handed her a mic. Was it a waiter? I couldn't tell. Everything felt surreal, like a dream tipping into nightmare. But then her voice broke the air. "I have something to share," she said. Calm, measured, steel beneath velvet. A few guests shifted, murmurs rustling through the crowd. Selene let out a soft chuckle. "Grandma, now's probably not—" "Be quiet," Elyra said, without looking at her. The air thickened. I don't think anyone had ever heard her speak like that, not even Selene. She set her clutch down on the podium with quiet purpose and unfastened the clasp. The sound of it clicking open echoed more than it should have. Then she pulled something out. A portfolio, leather-bound, familiar. I gasped before I meant to. No one else noticed. Yet. "I'd like to show you something," Elyra said, flipping it open. "Something most of you have never seen, but many of you, ironically, have paid for." She held up a full-page print of one of my digital paintings, The Silent Storm, a grayscale cityscape where shadows told more story than light. It had sold a year ago for more than I made in 6 months. Tavian squinted at it. "Wait, that's—" Elyra lifted her chin. "This is Elyra's." Murmurs grew louder. The air buzzed like electricity before a downpour. "She has been selling her work anonymously," Grandma said, turning the pages. "Not just paintings, entire collections, exhibited under a pseudonym, featured in independent galleries across New York, LA, and even Paris. Quietly, deliberately." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. It was happening. The thing I'd hidden for years, exposed in a room full of people who had always looked through me. She turned the portfolio toward the crowd. "Some of you praised this work at last year's River Point show," she added, locking eyes with Aunt Maris. "You didn't even know it was hers." Selene stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "That's ridiculous. Elyra doesn't—" "She does," Grandma cut in sharply. "And not only does she, she's made more in silent sales than most of this family has in open boasts." Gasps, sharp intakes of breath. The buzz turned into a hum, heads turning, eyes shifting. Someone in the back whispered my name. Selene's voice dropped, dangerous and low. "Why would you reveal this now?" Grandma's gaze landed on her like a spotlight. "Because I'm tired of watching this family worship noise while ignoring substance." Selene flinched, but quickly masked it with a laugh. "So what? She draws. I run 3 companies." "And yet," Grandma said, voice hardening, "Elyra's work speaks to strangers. Yours sells square footage." Tavian held up his hands, trying to cut through the growing tension. "Let's not turn this into a competition. This night's meant to celebrate." "I am celebrating," Grandma said quietly. "Just not the person you expected." People were looking at me now, really looking. And for once, not through the filter of Selene's commentary or Tavian's spotlight. The floor beneath me felt less slippery, my spine straighter. Still, my heart pounded like a drum in my chest. I didn't want this attention, not like this. But I also didn't want to hide anymore. Elyra closed the portfolio, her hands trembling ever so slightly now. She turned to me. "She didn't tell anyone," she said. "Not even me. I only found out by accident. And even then, I kept it to myself. But when I saw what tonight was becoming, I knew it had to change." Selene took a slow step forward, eyes on fire. "This is a stunt." Elyra didn't flinch. "No, this is truth." The room had gone quiet again, but not passive. There was tension now, thick and uncertain. Someone clapped, hesitant, slow, then another, and another, until half the room joined in. It wasn't thunderous, but it was enough. Enough to shake Selene's composure. Her jaw tightened, her fists balled at her sides. I knew that stance. She was calculating, cornered. Grandma stepped down from the stage, walking slowly. She stopped in front of me, holding the portfolio. She handed it over. It felt heavier than it looked. I stared down at it, at the worn edges, at the soft grain of the leather cover. It smelled like old ink and memory. I looked back up and saw Selene watching me. Not amused, not indifferent. Her eyes burned, and that's when I knew. She wouldn't let this go. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Back in my apartment, I sat in the dark with the portfolio on my lap, the city outside my window pulsing with neon and midnight noise. I hadn't changed out of the green dress. Its seams cut into my ribs now, stiff with dried sweat and humiliation. But I wasn't humiliated anymore. Not exactly. I felt cracked open, like something had been pried loose and left exposed to air. The portfolio lay open in front of me. Each page held a piece of the life I'd kept hidden. My paintings, my truth, my voice. Grandma's voice still echoed through my skull, clear, unshakable. Not only does she's made more in silent sales than most of this family has in open boasts. Part of me wanted to cry, but another part, the part I'd buried beneath years of silence, felt like standing up and screaming. I reached out and touched the edge of the final page. My thumb brushed a faint smear of graphite. These pieces had lived in shadows for so long. And now, they couldn't go back. The thought should have thrilled me, but it terrified me instead, because now that they knew, what would Selene do? My apartment felt colder than usual, or maybe it was just me. I moved to the kitchen, flipped on the dim overhead light, and filled a glass with tap water. I stared at the slow swirl of air bubbles climbing through the glass. My reflection blinked back at me from the faucet, pale, tired, alert in a way that didn't feel like fatigue. I knew Selene too well. That glare she gave me before I left the ballroom, that wasn't defeat. That was promise. She'd retaliate. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she'd find a way. And it wouldn't be loud. It never was with her. Selene destroyed in silence. The buzzer jolted me. I flinched, almost dropping the glass. It was nearly 1 a.m. I moved to the intercom, hesitated, then pressed the button. Hello? No answer. Just a soft crackle of static. I leaned closer. Who is it? Still nothing. Then a knock. Not at the front door downstairs. At mine. My body went still. 3 slow knocks. I turned toward the hallway, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I crept to the peephole, barely breathing. A man in a navy uniform stood there, delivery service. But I hadn't ordered anything. I opened the door an inch, chain still locked. He held out a medium-sized box, wrapped in brown paper. Delivery for Elyra Voss. From who? He shrugged. Didn't say. Just told me to bring it to this unit. Said it was already paid for. I hesitated, then unlocked the door and took the box. Thanks, I murmured. But he was already gone. I stood there a moment, staring down at the package. The weight was familiar, unsettling, like déjà vu in physical form. I carried it inside, set it on the coffee table, and carefully unwrapped the paper. Underneath was something I hadn't seen in almost 2 decades. The wooden box, the one I'd found under my bed as a kid, then lost. My throat tightened. I traced the carved edges, same swirling pattern, same faint initials in the bottom corner. LV. My hands trembled as I lifted the latch. It clicked open. Inside was a photograph, aged, curled at the edges. Me, maybe 8 years old, sitting on the stoop in front of Grandma's old house, sketching. My head tilted, completely focused. Beside me was a woman. Not Grandma, not Mom. Someone else. She had her arm draped protectively around my shoulders, and her face, though partially turned, was kind. Familiar in a way I couldn't name. My breath caught. Who was she? And why was this here now? Underneath the photo, a folded piece of paper. I opened it. The same handwriting as the letter from my childhood. Keep creating, Elyra. You are more than they say you are. Same phrasing, same loops in the G. My heart raced. This wasn't just about my art. Someone had been watching me, guiding me, believing in me. From the shadows. But who? And why now? I stared at the photo again. The woman's hand rested gently on mine in the picture, like she was showing me something. My fingers curled around the edge of the frame. Why had Grandma kept this? And what else had she hidden? My phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. Blocked number. We need to talk. Now. Don't tell anyone. Selene. The text sat on my screen, glowing like a warning flare. We need to talk. Now. Don't tell anyone. Selene. I stared at it, heart thudding. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't reply. Not yet. I set the phone down on the table and turned back to the wooden box still sitting open on my couch. The photograph lay where I'd left it, the woman's face barely visible beside my younger self. Whoever she was, the tenderness in the image was undeniable. There was no name, no date, just an atmosphere, care, protection, secrecy. And then the letter. That same looping handwriting. Keep creating, Elyra. You are more than they say you are. I didn't know if the chills down my spine were from the night air slipping through the cracked window, or the realization that someone had always been there in the background, quietly rooting for me while my own family drowned me out. I picked up the photo again and studied the woman's hand. She was wearing a simple bracelet, dark leather, a silver charm, a symbol I couldn't place but felt like I'd seen before. My mind tried to connect the dots, but they stayed scattered. Before I could stop myself, I took out the old letter from the envelope I'd never thrown away. The paper had yellowed, but the ink was still intact. I held it next to the newer one. Same curves in the L's, same tiny half loop at the top of the R, same hand. I exhaled shakily. Whoever had sent me that letter all those years ago, whoever had believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, was the same person who'd sent this box. And they knew Grandma, or were part of something she hadn't told me. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Outside. Don't make me knock. I moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. Selene. She was leaning against the side of her car, arms crossed, coat barely pulled around her shoulders despite the biting chill. She didn't look angry. She looked tense, like a wire stretched too tight. I grabbed my hoodie and went downstairs, each step loud against the silence in my building. She didn't wait for me to speak when I opened the door. Inside, she said quickly. I'm not doing this on the street. She brushed past me like she owned the place. Typical. Upstairs, I motioned toward the couch, but she remained standing, pacing. I closed the door and leaned against it, arms folded. What do you want, Selene? She stopped walking. Her jaw worked like she was chewing something invisible. Then finally she looked at me, really looked. I didn't know, she said. That threw me. Didn't know what? Her eyes darted to the box, to the letter still open on the table. About the letters, the portfolio, any of it. My voice came out sharper than I meant. You mean until Grandma humiliated you in front of your adoring fans? Selene didn't flinch. No, I mean, I didn't know until after, and now I don't know who the hell to believe. I said nothing. She pulled a folded page from her coat and handed it to me. I unfolded it. My stomach dropped. It was a photocopy of another letter, same paper, same writing, same anonymous looping script, but it was addressed to her. You know what you're doing, Selene, but don't forget what you buried. It won't stay hidden forever. No signature, no explanation. I looked up at her. Where did you get this? It was slipped under my door last night. Her arms were crossed again, defensive, uncomfortable. That bracelet, I said slowly. The woman in the photo, she was wearing a bracelet with a symbol on it. Selene's brow furrowed. What kind of symbol? Like an eye or a flame. I don't know, it looked familiar. Do you recognize it? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. You do, I said. I've seen it, she admitted. Once, years ago, on Grandma's desk. It was etched into a pendant she used to wear, tucked into her blouses. I asked about it and she said, that's not for now. I felt like the air had been knocked from my chest. What had Grandma been hiding? And who else knew? Selene sat down finally, elbows on her knees. She's been protecting you for a long time. From you? She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back, exhaled hard, and looked at the ceiling. This family, we're all broken in different ways. Tavian plays golden boy, Aunt Maris drinks ambition for breakfast, and I learned how to win, no matter what. And me? You learned how to vanish. That hit harder than it should have, but she wasn't wrong. She rubbed her temples, then glanced at me. If someone's been watching us all these years, someone outside the family, someone Grandma knew, don't you want to find out who it is? I stared at her, unsure whether this was a trap or the first time we'd ever spoken like sisters. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it and froze. What? I asked. She turned the screen toward me, a photo, blurry, taken from a distance, me, through my apartment window. The caption, "You're not alone, Elyra, but neither is she. Block number." The photo on Selene's phone didn't just rattle me, it cracked something open. There I was, framed in my own window, unaware. My body tensed. That image hadn't come from across the street. It was taken from above, a neighboring rooftop or balcony. Close, calculated. I stepped away, the heat rising in my chest faster than I could reason with. They've been watching me. Selene didn't respond at first. Her eyes scanned the room like it might start whispering answers. "Why say you're not alone, then add that I'm not either?" I asked. Selene exhaled through her nose, lips tightening. "Because they want us divided, distracted." "And it's working," I shot back. She moved toward the window, fingers parting the curtain by an inch. No cars out front, streets quiet, too quiet. I stood in the center of my apartment, suddenly hyper-aware of every exposed corner, every unlocked cabinet. "You came here to warn me, didn't you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "And to confess something." I folded my arms, bracing. She looked right at me, voice lower now. "I sabotaged your gallery submissions." The words hit like a punch to the ribs. I blinked. "What?" "Years ago," she said, "when you were starting to send things out, I found an envelope at Mom's, your portfolio. I opened it, saw your name, your work. I shredded half of it. The rest I sent in under a different name." My mind reeled. "You what? Why?" "Because I was jealous," she snapped, then paused, as if surprised by her own honesty. "Because you were good, and I couldn't stand the idea of you being better than me at something that actually mattered." I sat down, my legs giving out beneath me. My skin felt too tight for my body. Selene didn't move. "But something happened I didn't plan. That gallery responded." I looked up. "To your submission?" She nodded. "To yours, but under the fake name. I kept going. I watched them promote your work, build buzz, and I redirected it. I used dummy accounts, set up LLCs. I funneled the art sales into shell businesses. I used your art to fund 3 of my biggest commercial developments." I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. The air thickened around me like molasses. Selene stood there, face tight. "It was never supposed to go that far, but it worked. And once it worked, I couldn't stop. You kept creating, and I kept selling." My stomach churned. My chest hollowed out. "You made millions," I whispered. She didn't deny it. "And you let me think I wasn't good enough," I said. The silence between us turned sharp. "You let me disappear." Selene's eyes glistened, just for a moment, then she blinked it away. That was the idea. Something dark swelled in me, grief maybe, or rage, finally waking up. "You're a monster," I breathed. "I know." The words stunned me. They weren't defensive, just flat. I stood. The room shifted with me, tilting. "You used my soul for profit," I said. Selene looked down at her shoes. "I thought you'd never find out. But then Grandma exposed the portfolio at the gala, and I panicked. So you texted me, showed up like you cared." "I didn't care," she said. "I was cornered. But then the letter came. The photo, and now, I think someone's about to burn it all down." "Good," I said. She raised her eyes to mine. "They're coming for both of us, Elyra. Whoever sent those messages, they know everything. Then why are you here? Because for once, we're on the same side." A bitter laugh escaped me. "There is no side. Not anymore." She flinched. I walked to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and retrieved the original contracts from one of the anonymous gallery sales, hidden there years ago. They were in my name. I held them up. "I have proof," I said. "I can take this public, take you down." "I know," she whispered, "and you should. But before you do, don't you want to know who gave me the first contact? The person who told me how to sell your work, where to send it, how to disappear your name?" I froze. "What?" She nodded. "I didn't do this alone. I had help." The ground shifted beneath me again. "I always thought it was just a coincidence," she said slowly. "A gift of opportunity. But now, with the photo, the letters, the bracelet, Grandma's secrets, I think there's more. Someone orchestrated this from the start." My mouth went dry. She pulled a name from her coat pocket, written on the back of a receipt. They called themselves Vale. That ring a bell? My pulse spiked. Ashwood and Vale, Tavian's law firm. "What does Tavian have to do with this?" I asked. Selene's jaw tightened. "That's what we need to find out." Before I could say another word, her phone buzzed again. She turned it toward me. Another message. Stop digging or the next gallery burns. Attached was a photo of my work on fire. I couldn't tear my eyes from the image on Selene's phone. My painting, weightless, reduced to flame. The canvas curling in on itself like a dying flower. The ash floating against a black backdrop lit by firelight. And beneath it, stop digging or the next gallery burns. My throat closed. The room seemed to shrink around me, thick with smoke that wasn't there. Heat that hadn't touched me yet, but was on its way. Selene's voice cut through the silence. This isn't just blackmail anymore. No, I said quietly. It's war. I didn't wait to argue. I grabbed the box, the letters, the photograph, the contract proof, everything I'd hidden for too long, and stuffed them into my leather satchel. My keys jingled in my hand as I moved fast on instinct. Where are you going? Selene asked. To Grandma's. Now? Yes. If she's been keeping secrets, I want them all. Tonight. Selene hesitated, then reached for her coat. I'm coming with you. I stared at her, my stomach tightening. Why would I trust you? You don't have to, she said, but you're not the only one they're threatening anymore. We left in silence, the cold slamming into us as we stepped outside. I didn't even wait for Selene to start her car. I drove. The night stretched around us like a held breath. The farther we got from the city, the quieter it became. Trees lined the winding road to Grandma Leora's cabin, their bare limbs clawing at the stars. Halfway there, I remembered the summers we'd spent in that house, sweaty and full of lemonade, the soft clack of typewriter keys echoing through the walls as Grandma wrote long letters no one ever read aloud. And that's when it hit me. The handwriting, the same flourishes in every letter. I glanced at Selene. Did Grandma ever teach you cursive? Not really. Why? But I didn't answer. Not yet. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as we pulled up to the cabin. The lights were on. Relief warred with anxiety in my chest. Selene and I stepped out. I clutched the bag tighter. When Grandma opened the door, she looked like she'd been expecting us. Hair pinned up neatly, shawl wrapped tight. Her eyes scanned me, then Selene, then the satchel in my hands. Come in, she said, stepping aside. The warmth inside hit me instantly. Wood smoke, chamomile, something faintly lemon-scented. The fire crackled in the hearth, soft against the hush of tension thickening in the room. I didn't sit. Neither did Selene. I need answers, I said, voice steadier than I felt. Grandma nodded slowly. I know. I dropped the satchel on the table, opened it, and spread everything out. The letters, the photo, the burned painting's printed image, the text messages. My whole hidden life laid bare. Her eyes didn't flinch. Start with the woman in the photo, I said. Who is she? Grandma looked down at the image. Her fingers, knotted with age and strength, rested gently on the corner. My sister, she said. I blinked. What? She left when I was 19, changed her name, disappeared into art communes. She had a daughter, your mother, and for years I didn't know if they were safe, until one day a letter came, from your mom, then from you. My breath caught. I wrote you letters, she said, anonymous ones, encouraging you to draw, to hide it if needed, but never stop. Selene leaned forward, stiff. Why hide it from the family? Because I knew what they were capable of, Grandma said, eyes flashing, and I knew what Selene had already done. I turned to Selene, her mouth tightened. You knew? Grandma nodded. Of course. I confronted her once, but by then the damage was done. I paced to the fireplace. My hand grazed the mantel. And you let it go on? I watched, Grandma said. I documented, protected what I could, but if I stepped in too early, it would have all unraveled. You had to want to fight for yourself. You had to choose it. I shook my head, the air thick around me. Then why reveal it at the gala? Because you were finally ready, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And because they were watching again. Them? I turned. You mean Vale? Grandma didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a locked wooden box. She opened it with a key she wore around her neck. Inside were documents, photographs, maps, names. One in particular stood out, a legal memo, Tavian Reed, partnered with Vale Holdings, LLC. Selene gasped. He's funding through them. Not just funding, Grandma said. He's laundering. My mouth went dry. "You said you wanted answers, Elyra, but some of those answers come with risk." "I don't care," I said. "Tell me everything." But before she could speak, a sudden screech cut through the cabin, the sound of tires on gravel. Headlights flooded the windows. A car, another, and another. Selene moved first, dousing the lights. Grandma locked the file box. I grabbed my satchel and ducked low. Outside, a voice barked commands. A flashlight beam swept the edge of the porch. They'd found us. I never thought I'd step onto a stage with my own name behind me. Not a pseudonym, not initials, not a blank placard next to a frame, just Elyra Voss, Inheritance in Ink. The words glowed in white serif across a crimson banner, stretched above the brick archway of the gallery's entrance. The opening night was invitation only, but the line outside stretched half a block. Inside, the air buzzed with anticipation. Warm lighting spilled across polished floors. My paintings, old and new, lined the walls, their colors louder than I remembered, as if they'd been waiting years to speak. Strangers stood in clusters, whispering, nodding. A few held champagne flutes, others notebooks. One woman stood in front of the drowning room, tears openly streaming down her face. I clutched the hem of my jacket, knuckles tight. Everything in me buzzed. "I've never seen your name so big," Jorvik murmured at my side. His curls were tucked under a beanie, his guitar-pick necklace tucked into his shirt. "Feels fake," I whispered. He bumped his shoulder gently into mine. "It's not." The lights dimmed slightly. Time to speak. I didn't want to. I wasn't a public speaker. My art had always been my voice, but tonight demanded more. So I stepped up. The crowd quieted. Cameras clicked. I saw Selene near the back, arms crossed, jaw tight, but present. That was something. Grandma Leora stood near the front, calm as stone, her shawl clasped neatly at her chest. I cleared my throat. "For most of my life," I began, voice wavering at first, "I created in silence, not because I wanted to be invisible, but because that was the only way I felt safe." A ripple moved through the room. "But silence," I said, steadier now, "isn't the same as peace." I looked down at the folder in my hand, the same one Selene had once stolen, altered, monetized. Tonight I held the original. My name signed at the bottom in blue ink. "These pieces," I said, gesturing to the walls, "were never meant to be hidden, but neither were the truths behind them." I paused. Then slowly I turned to the screen behind me. A projection flickered to life. Selene's voice, recorded, clipped, crystal clear. "I sabotaged your gallery submissions. I used your work to fund my properties." The room went still. A few gasps. One woman covered her mouth. Selene's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't leave. I didn't look away from her. Not now. "Truth," I said, "isn't always kind, but it's necessary." I stepped down from the stage. Applause started slow, then grew, but I barely heard it, because I saw him, a man, standing near the back wall, just inside the entrance. He wore a charcoal coat, watchful, silent, arms crossed, face unreadable. He didn't clap, didn't move, just stared at me. Something about him prickled the back of my neck. I moved toward the side of the room, pretending to scan the crowd, but my eyes locked on him. "Do you see that guy?" I asked Jorvik. Jorvik turned, then narrowed his eyes. "No idea who that is. I've seen him before." The man stepped out of the shadows slightly, revealing a small pin on his lapel, an emblem, the eye, the flame, the same one from the bracelet, the one in the photo. My stomach dropped. He met my gaze, then gave the faintest nod and walked away. I darted after him, weaving through the crowd. "Excuse me," I murmured, brushing past gallery guests. By the time I reached the lobby, he was gone. Out the door, into the street. I chased him outside, the cold air slapping my cheeks, but the sidewalk was empty. I turned in both directions, nothing, no one. I stood there, heart pounding, breath fogging in the cold. He'd left something behind, taped to the outer glass door, a photo, me and Selene, young, on Grandma's porch, and behind us, blurred but visible, the same man, smiling. I held the photo in my hands as if it might burn me. It was us, Selene and me, on Grandma's porch, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Our knees were scraped. We were laughing. Behind us in the background blur was the man from the gallery, the same man who wore the pin, the flame in the eye. I stared at it so long I forgot to breathe. "Who are you?" The question thundered through me. I barely slept that night. By morning, the buzz around the gallery had turned into wildfire. Someone had leaked the video of Selene's confession. It hit social media with velocity. Hashtags, comment threads, debates. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt raw, wounded in places I didn't know existed. Still, there was something I knew I had to do. Face them, all of them. By sunset, I was standing in Grandma's dining room again, this time surrounded by the people who had built me and broken me. Tavian sat stiffly at the head of the table, jaw set, as if waiting for a verdict. Aunt Maris clutched a tissue she hadn't used yet, but held onto like a shield. Selene was there too, quiet for once, her arms folded but eyes alert. And Grandma stood beside me. I set the photo down in the center of the table like a piece of evidence. "This was left at the gallery," I said. "The man in the background, he's been watching us, for years." Tavian leaned forward. "And you think he's dangerous?" "I think he's a ghost," I said. "One Grandma never told us about." All eyes turned to her. Leora didn't flinch. "His name is Elias Vale." Tavian blinked. "As in Vale Holdings?" "Yes," she said softly. "He was once part of our family's trust. Decades ago. He had access to everything. Real estate, investments, names. But he wanted more. So he started taking... quietly." Selene narrowed her eyes. "Why would he care about me?" Grandma looked at her steady. "Because you walked into his game. Your shell companies, your fake art transactions. They mirrored the laundering tactics he used to build his empire. You may not have known it, but you were walking his path." Selene's face drained of color. "And Elyra?" I asked, voice sharp. "Why me?" Grandma hesitated. "Because you were the one who got away," she said. "Your anonymity protected you, but your work, your name now, is a threat. He's built a system on silence, and you're loud." Tavian slammed his palm against the table. "You knew this man was dangerous, and you said nothing?" "I was waiting for the right moment," Grandma said. "And now it's come." "That's not good enough," Tavian barked. "No," I said quietly, "but it's the truth." A heavy pause fell. Aunt Maris finally spoke, voice shaking. "What do we do now?" "We expose him," I said. "All of it." Tavian scoffed. "You think that's easy? He has lawyers, power. If we push too hard, we'll lose everything." "You mean you'll lose everything?" Selene snapped. "Your firm's tied to him, isn't it?" Tavian looked like she slapped him. "I didn't know," he muttered. "Not until recently." "And now?" I asked. He met my eyes. "Now I'm scared." I sat down slowly, hands folded in front of me. "Well, I'm done being scared." A silence followed, thick as storm clouds. Then I pulled out the contract, my original gallery contract, and placed it beside the photo. I have proof that I own my work, that my name was stolen, that Selene profited illegally, and now that Vale has threatened me in writing, I have enough to go public. Selene didn't argue. She just looked tired, defeated. Tavian leaned back in his chair, exhaling like the wind had left him. "You're going to ruin us." "No," I said. "I'm going to free us." Grandma smiled then. The first real smile I'd seen in days. But before anyone could speak again, there was a knock at the front door. We all froze. It came again. 3 sharp raps. I rose first, the photo still clutched in my fingers. Through the glass, I saw a man in a charcoal coat. The same one. Elias Vale. I turned the lock with shaking hands and opened the door slowly. He didn't smile, didn't threaten. He simply said, "I think it's time we had a proper conversation." Elias Vale stood on Grandma's front porch like a man who already owned the house. No security detail, no threats, just a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth like he knew he'd already won. I didn't flinch. I didn't invite him in. Instead, I stepped outside, letting the screen door swing shut behind me. The wood creaked beneath us, but neither of us moved. "I saw the video," he said. "Impressive display. You exposed your sister without even raising your voice." "You saw it," I replied, "but you still showed up." "Curiosity," he shrugged. "I wanted to see the girl who finally made the Voss family bleed." I kept my voice steady. "You helped her do it." Selene, you taught her how to hide the money. You gave her the fake identities, the offshore wires. You were grooming her." He smiled wider. "You think I orchestrated all that? No, Elyra, your sister came to me. I just opened doors. You exploited her. I rewarded initiative." My jaw tightened. "And me? What was I? A liability?" "You were noise," he said simply. "And now you're a problem." For a moment, the wind carried the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. Then I spoke. "No, I'm the end of your story." Behind me, the front door creaked open. Tavian stepped out, holding a thick manila folder, the one filled with financial documents Grandma had kept locked away. He walked past me, silent, and handed it to Vale. "Copies," Tavian said. "Everything tying your holdings to our family accounts, laundering, tax fraud, even art trafficking." Vale's expression didn't change. "You'll burn your own firm?" "I already did," Tavian said quietly. "I resigned this morning." Vale looked at him for a long beat, then back at me. "You really think this ends with a few signatures in a courtroom?" "No," I said, stepping forward. "It ends with someone finally telling the truth." His eyes searched mine, calm and calculating. "You know what happens next, right? To people who shine too much light?" "I do," I whispered. "They stop hiding." Grandma's voice called softly from the doorway. "She's not alone, Elias." Vale turned, just for a second, and that was all it took. From the edge of the driveway, Jorvik stepped forward, phone raised. "Streamed and recorded." He'd been filming the entire time. Vale didn't flinch, but I saw it. The flicker of awareness behind his eyes, the wall cracking. "You won't win," he said, backing down the steps. "Even if I fall, another takes my place." I let the words sit in the air, but didn't reply, because it didn't matter anymore. He was already walking toward the road, his footsteps slow, careful. The night swallowed him, and just like that, he was gone. I stayed on the porch long after the others drifted inside. The air smelled of pine and old wood. The wind moved gently through the trees like breath. I closed my eyes and let it wash over me. We filed the charges the next morning. Selene signed a full confession. Tavian offered public testimony. Grandma turned over decades of sealed records. Vale disappeared before the warrants could be served, but his assets were frozen within a week. And me? I stayed quiet until the headlines hit. Anonymous artist behind record-breaking exhibits revealed to be whistleblower in high-profile laundering case. Reporters knocked for days. I didn't answer. Instead, I painted. I poured every scrape of silence, every stolen breath, every swallowed scream into my next collection. And when the new gallery opened, it wasn't in my name. It was in my mother's, and her mother's, and mine. The House of Names. 3 generations. 1 legacy. A week after the unveiling, Jorvik called me to the rooftop. I found him sitting on the ledge, swinging his feet like a kid. He handed me a letter. No stamp, no return address, just a single line. "She'd be proud of you." Inside was a photo, the woman from the old photograph, clearer this time, laughing, holding me as a baby, and beside her, Grandma, younger, arms crossed, pretending not to smile. A chill passed through me, but I wasn't afraid. The last mystery didn't need solving. It needed remembering. Because in the end, all we really want is to be seen, to know that we mattered, and to tell our stories before someone else writes them for us. You don't need their permission to shine. You never did. If this story struck a chord, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Share your own journey, or someone else's who deserves to be heard. Watch our next video for another story of truth, survival, and becoming your own voice.